what that 5% number actually represented? Maybe?
Whatever amount that is not going toward paying for enforceable obligations and bondholders and other things is an amount not going to taxing entities.
I got that, but the 5% can go toward administrative costs, correct?
Yes, the legislation provides for up to 5% goes for administrative costs. It doesn't include the implementation of projects. Then we look at what funds do we have to implement projects if other things are already pledged. For example, our housing dollars, we in fact didn't use, historically, didn't use any dollar to pay for staff. All went to program dollars. So and pursuant to terms and conditions of agreement. So if we pledged every piece of tax increment allocated, what are our remaining sources? One, developer reimbursables pursuant to the terms and conditions of those agreements.
I get that. I guess I'm just trying to get to a number because what we talked about earlier was this $1 million bogey per month that we would need if you were going to keep your staff on board or the old staff on board for the additional payment. So I'm just trying to see how close we could get there by using that 5% clause that AB 26 gives you for administrative costs. And without knowing that number, we're a little bit premature in saying, well, here's where we need to go. But I have 4 questions, so don't shut me up yet. Thursday, you talked about this meeting that's going to happen on Thursday where certain things will be outlined and certain people will know you stay, you go, project stay, project go. Will this commission get a synopsis of what happens on Thursday? Okay, I'm asking that this commission get a synopsis of what happens on Thursday so that we'll get a better feel for what's happening as well.
Yes, staff can provide that to you, yes.
Okay, and because I've gone through a number of mergers with banks that I've worked for in the past, one of the things that happens, and I just want to be clear and have it out on the table, that a lot of times when you're merging and you're moving people somewhere else, older workers tend to be left out of there. People who've been around for a long time and have either higher salaries or higher retirement benefits get kind of pushed to the side in favor of younger workers. I just want to go on record today saying I hope I don't see that happening where people who've been working on projects for an extended period of time who are now being moved away from their project in favor of someone who hasn't been there as long. No seniority doesn't play a part in this, but it really needs to be taken into consideration that if you are laying folks off and the predominant number of people you lay off are older workers, it may be an issue. So I just need that kept in mind that I personally don't want to see it happen. That was only 2. Two more. Oh, the plan, the transition plan. We got this huge document before the last meeting and it gave us a lot of information, but I guess I'm looking for what everyone else was talking about here today, and that's that transition plan. If we're transitioning folks into TransPay, what is that transition and how do we get there and what happens to the harbor master? I mean, all those things need to be well understood. And my final one is, I have a real soft spot in my heart for small business owners. And it pains me when I hear small business owners talk about not getting paid. And a lot of times it's contractors and construction and all that that's going on where they're not getting paid. To hear someone doing business with the city, and I don't know the legitimacy of this McCoy story, all I know is if somehow vendors are getting lost in the cracks because of what's happened with the redevelopment agency, that really needs to be looked into because it is an enforceable obligation and that is under the jurisdiction of this board. I got that one right this time, right?
Amen.
Amen.
I'm not particularly comfortable with people finding out for 11 days notice whether they're going to be laid off or not. And as I understand it, the way you'll find out if you're laid off or not is your layoff will either be rescinded or it won't. If it's not rescinded, then it's for real, and you have 11 days from that point before it takes effect. So everybody at the current time doesn't really have any layoff notices of what the future holds for them. So I apologize for putting people on the spot here, but I'd actually like to add a resolve, and the resolve is a little complicated, and I apologize for that as well. No, let me just read it once and I'll go back. No former employee of the agency, no former agency employee be laid off sooner than 60 days after being notified that their current layoff notice is not being rescinded. And if that is going to occur on Thursday, then the 60 days would begin on Thursday, and that would guarantee that every former agency employee would have at least 60 days notice prior to being laid off. And I think after all, quite clearly, obviously, after all the testimony we've heard, in terms of the individuals and their dedication and the importance of the rational transition plan, whether we have the right to do this or not, somebody can figure that out after. But as far as my own personal sentiment is concerned, I can't sit up here and let the current plan play out its course without a decent amount of notice for those people that will eventually be laid off, and for all the other clients of the redevelopment agency that will be impacted by those people's departure. So I'd like to offer that as an amendment and add that new resolve to the members.
Just two things. One is, I think in terms of weighting, in terms of no matter what the 5% amount might be, I think we need to move ahead with this resolution today, whatever that number is. And I think people are asking us to do that. I think secondly, with respect to the timing, with respect, Bob, I disagree, because what you're essentially saying is that we should be discussing the collective bargaining process in this room as opposed to the table where it's been designated to be discussed. And I'm really uncomfortable with that. I mean, I've been called on the carpet for trying to do the same thing in my department, and I really don't believe it's within our right to have a discussion at this table on the collective bargaining process. So I would not support that.
I would also not support the proposed amendment. Again, I concur with John that this is a matter that's subject to negotiations. It should stay with the negotiators.
Not to be argumentative, but it actually, the layoff notices were put out by the redevelopment agency, and they're actually not, the rules around layoff notices are in the collective bargaining agreement, but the idea of issuing the layoff notice is actually a managerial right, and one that has already been exercised, and all we're doing is telling our executive director that once you rescind certain layoff notices and don't rescind others, that those other people whose layoff now become effective in 11 days should be extended for a total of 60 days. And so it's not what is going on. They're not negotiating over the layoff dates at the bargaining table. It's not a topic. That's not a topic of bargaining that's currently going on. I don't believe either side has a proposal to extend the layoff dates. Do they? If I can, through the chair, maybe I can direct it.
Through the chair, Tiffany Bowie, I just wanted to clarify some of the facts. Layoff notices were issued for all employees for well over 60. There was appropriate notice pursuant to the terms of each of those bargaining agreements. There are certain notices under Local 21. There are certain notices under 1021. The agency issued those notices, and then the city, as successor entity stepping into the shoes, issued the balance of those notices pursuant to the notice to the unions. So notice to the unions, and then notice to
agree with you. I want to sign on to what you're trying to do. So, please.
But isn't it true that if you're an employee continuing at this point in time, you don't really know whether you're being laid off or not? In fact, that's what you're going to announce on Thursday. There's no way of telling if all employees received the very same notice. Nobody's challenging that this met your legal requirements. We know why you did it. We know that it meets your legal requirements, but not really in spirit, because the entire universe was notified. And therefore, no one within the universe knows whether they're actually staying or not, and you won't know as you described.
Understand, and I am sympathetic. My only concern to the amendment to this article is that I agree we don't have the numbers in front of us, but I do know by extending it to 60 days could potentially have fiscal impact that we don't have in front of us. So with that said, and knowing that it would in a way kind of impact whatever approval processes we go through, for instance, the recognized obligation payment schedule and so on, I'm comfortable doing that.
Is that okay?
There are two amendments.
But Olson's motion included the original amendment language.
Right. So you're proposing, can we, because there are two separate amendments. The first amendment we made was to the excerpt read by Board Member Olson, and then there was an additional one. So subsequent to that, and the first amendment, we got a motion and a second. So does that mean I take that motion and vote on it, or do I include both? I'm just trying to get that.
It's part of the matrix issue, so I think you could take it one at a time.
Okay, so we could take it one at a time, or we take it all together? They're two separate, that's what I thought. So let's take the first one. Can you, Madam Secretary, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes.
What are we voting on?
We're voting on the first amendment that was made that got a motion and a second that was just specifically to Olson's amendment. Because they're two separate.
Could you please read what we're going to vote on?
So the item is, yes,
Eventually, we'll vote on the original motion, the original
resolution with it.
Assuming they both pass, which is
We need to separate these all.
I thought you wanted to do it.
I wanted to do the first, but we need
Can we,
second. Okay.
what I would ask of the chair is for Board Member Lee to repeat what he
Exactly.
said.
Thank you.
In this resolve clause, it's the same to the, this oversight board urges the city to use all resources that the city has available to assist employees seek employment with city agencies to perform other functions for the city consistent with their knowledge. And there's no other change after that.
I will now call roll call vote. Board Member Waymack. Board Member Sweet.
Yes.
Board Member Ram.
Aye.
Board Member Muscat.
yes.
Board Member Midnight.
Aye.
Vice Chair Olson.
Aye.
Chair Sasse.
Aye.
There has been a roll call, and all members of the board support the amendment.